culture, so it's very ingrained in us. So we really want to make sure that you guys trust each other and know that this process is going to stay between all of us. Okay. So before I talk about specific things, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about myself. You heard all those fancy things that she said, but I just wanted to tell you my personal life experience so that you can know where I'm coming from. So I was actually born and raised in Canada. My parents were both immigrants from India. My dad came to Canada in 1967, I believe, and he to work, and then went back 2 years later, and my parents had an arranged marriage, and my mom moved to Canada with him. I was born shortly after. And so I grew up in a very, very traditional Indian household where culture, language, religion, food, all of it was a very big part of our own life. The town I grew up in, however, was a very small conservative town in a province called Nova Scotia, and it was predominantly white. I think there was maybe 3 Indian families in the whole town. So it was very, very interesting. A lot of the challenges that I personally faced with parents from India, living in a totally different culture. And my parents were very encouraging and very open with, I have 2 younger brothers, with allowing us and teaching us how to assimilate in the culture and allowing us to do certain things. But there were also rules and regulations and things that are kind of just built into an Indian family system, I think. That we knew certain things were kind of off limits, or we weren't necessarily going to be allowed to do certain things. So I think it's very interesting now. I've also now raised 3 children here in Jacksonville. My oldest daughter is 26, and then I have a 22-year-old son, and my 18-year-old son, who's here with us today. And I think it's given me a lot of different perspectives, both being raised in this culture, from a traditional Indian family, and also raising my own kids here, and the things that I carried with me from my parents, the things I changed, and so I think it gives me a unique perspective to kind of understand where everyone is coming from. So just a show of hands in this room, how many of you guys were born in the United States? Okay, and how many of y'all were born outside of the United States? And where were you guys born? Where were you born? India, were the rest of y'all who were not born here born in India? And did you come here as very young, or do you remember life in India? 7, okay. And how about you? How old were you? Okay, all right. So there's a lot of change. So maybe you can understand some of the things I'm referring to already. And of all the people in here, how many people's parents are born in India? Pretty much everybody? Anyone whose parents were not born in India? Okay, just my son. So then I guess me and you guys have had a very similar experience. So one of the reasons that I'm very interested in talking about this topic is since I've been in Jacksonville, I'm starting to see more and more Indian clients in my practice. And it's really interesting. I see children, adolescents, I see adults as well. And I think that the stigma of mental health in the Indian community is starting to shift a little, which is a good thing. More people are willing to talk about problems and willing to talk about things that are happening. But one of the things that's very interesting to me is that as I talk to people, especially adolescents, youngsters, young adults, a lot of the things that they talk about are the same things that I went through. And we're talking like a lot of years, 40 to 50 years ago, having the same challenges as you guys are now. And I thought it was really interesting to me because with all of the changes in the world, this is a completely different world. Technology, with just access to things, with access to Indian community, which I didn't have. So things have changed so drastically in the world for every adolescent. But how come these challenges have not changed? So I think it's so important that we really start to talk about this a little more, address these things. We do talk to the parents about how they can shift their ideas and thoughts. But I think it's so important to hear from you guys assume that certain things are hard, and we can talk all about that, but we want to hear from you guys and hear about what are the things that you guys are facing day to day, and maybe even help you find ways to communicate differently with your parents so that you can get your point across and get things, have things go the way you want them to go. So for today, we thought we would give you guys some scenarios and have you break out into groups and maybe designate one person in each group to kind of write stuff down, and then at the end of it come and we can share ideas and thoughts about what's been going on. What your thoughts are on the groups. Some people are like, no groups, everyone wants to share. So what I've done is I've put scenarios. There's little scenarios on the tables in the back. And if you want to break out into groups, there's 7 scenarios there, and I don't know if we don't necessarily need to do all 7, but I'll have you guys go back there and maybe groups of, I guess, 4 or 5, and spend about 10 or 15 minutes. No, I don't want to do that. Talking about the scenarios and answering questions, and then we'll come back together, and I will, we can talk about them together, and I'll give you guys some feedback on what I'm thinking from an emotional and psychological point of view about how to handle those. Does that sound like a plan? Everyone's so excited. It won't be too bad, I promise. So there's some water and cookies if you guys want to grab some on your way to